What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Rasslin, and this is my review for the June 23rd episode of Impact Wrestling. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Follow House of Rasslin on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Tonight's Impact Wrestling show, compared to what we've experienced in the past several weeks, this one felt very mellow, but at the same time, you could tell that they were gradually going into storylines, new storylines, that is, and they weren't trying to rush anything. But it was a pretty entertaining show, especially if you're an Impact Wrestling fan. It was pretty entertaining. What I did like about the show was the opening segment, because they brought so many dynamics and intriguing aspects to a feud that's already happening, but is just very interesting. So we get Honor No More coming out. Mike Bennett grabs a camera. You have Eddie Edwards saying that they wanted to achieve bigger, but one of us lost, and he names PCO. Vincent says, hey, I didn't bring him back for anything. I brought him back for Honor No More. You get Matt Taven saying that if it wasn't for him in 2019, Ring of Honor would have folded. From there, you get America's Most Wanted. They come out, which is surprising. It was like, okay, thought this was a one-off thing for Slammiversary, but hey, they're here. All right, and let's be real. America's Most Wanted, when they were wrestling in Impact Wrestling's early days, they were probably one of their most popular tag teams and fun tag teams. So you had James Storm telling them, you guys suck because if you were a real tag team, you would have taken, or a real team, you guys would have taken that loss and learned from it and came back, but you didn't. You're crying. Then Chris Harris tells Kenny King, I'll make you cry harder than you did when you were on The Bachelorette. That was funny. Then you have the Good Brothers coming out, and they join America's Most Wanted. They head to the ring. There's a melee. Then the Briscoes come out, and they just start chaos, man. Just chaos. So we have the Briscoes aligned with the Good Brothers, who they faced at Slammiversary. And you have the America's Most Wanted. So these three teams are aligned to each other, feuding with Honor No More. So this is intriguing because the way they played it off, you don't know, like, it's like the Good Brothers are faces. Like, everybody's a face. So they're good and they're cool and everything. But it's like, wait a minute. Gallows and Anderson are still a part of Bullet Club. Like, they're still heels and they're the champs. Like, there's something going on here. But I like it because of that whole dynamic, and it's interesting, and you're like, okay, where's this going to go? Who's going to turn on who? How's this going to play out with the Bullet Club? What's James Storm's deal? Of course, Chris Harris, he's not going to wrestle. So, like, what's going to happen here? Then you have a backstage segment with Giselle Shaw and Alicia. Basically, Alicia's, like, hey, you were supposed to coach me. And Giselle Shaw's like, hey, I know you lost to Masha Slamovich, but, like, I'm not scared of her. I just don't want anything to do with her. Then we get a backstage segment with Honor No More and Scott D'Amore. And he makes the match for the main event, which is Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, and Eddie Edwards versus the Briscoes and James Storm. Then we get a video package of Against All Odds, and they announce that Josh Alexander will be facing Joe Doring. That's an interesting matchup, considering it's going to be it's going to be on July 1st, I believe that they said. Yeah, the first Friday of July, basically July 1st. Duh. But yeah, that's an interesting main event for Josh Alexander at Against All Odds. I don't know, it's just very interesting that, it's Josh Alexander is facing Joe Doring. Should be an interesting match. What I do like about the match is that it does put Joe Doring in a different, it takes him out of the stereotypical, big man bodyguard, the muscle of the group. It gives him some shine, especially in this. More than likely, he's going to be in the main event with Josh Alexander at Against All Odds. So that should be really cool. I'm actually looking forward to that match, seeing how that match plays out, especially with Joe Doran and just where he goes and, what happens after that match. How's his stock going to rise, or is it going to stay the same, or just, it can't get worse because he's a really solid worker. So it's going to be interesting how that match unfolds. Then we get Chelsea Green with Deonna Purrazzo versus Mia Yim. I like this for several reasons. One reason is because this was the first match on this show. It's awesome that the women get, the first shot. You see it in WWE. You have yet to see it in AEW. For what reason? Don't know. Just waiting for that day that they put them on first on Dynamite because, hello. But man, Chelsea Green in this match, she was very, very cocky and very cunning in this match, she's a heel. She's supposed to do that. But the way she did it, very good. You could just tell the contrast in Mia Yim and Chelsea Green, the way this match worked out. Like I said, Chelsea Green was very heelish. She slammed Mia Yim into the announce table, and her best friend, Deonna Purrazzo, was there, and they were high-fiving each other. So it was just a very cocky, arrogant, ooh, man, you just want to, come on, Mia Yim, just, ugh. But Mia Yim, she had a lot of offense. There was a curb stomp that Chelsea Green performed on Mia Yim that looked great. That was very good. I like that part. The match, by that point, they just got real physical. Really, the clotheslines, everything, man. This was a solid match from both of them. You could tell they toned down the physicality in this match from, let's face it, Saturday. Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo literally fell off a ladder in the ring into two tables on ringside. So you could tell they toned down the physicality, but just a lot of mat wrestling and just very what you're normally accustomed to in a wrestling match, which I have no problem with it. If I took that fall, I wouldn't use the term take it easy, but hey, I'll just keep it basic. And hell, it's you don't want to, whatever injury bug is going on, in pro wrestling, you want to keep it way far from you. Then there was a point in the match where Deonna Purrazzo, she puts Mia Yim off the top rope. Then you get Mickie James coming down, and you got Mickie James and Deonna Purrazzo. They're just fisticuffs and melee, and that led to Mia Yim getting the pin, 1, 2, 3, and you have Mia Yim and Mickie James looking at each other and looking at Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo as they're walking up. So normally how Impact Wrestling works, we're going to get a tag match with Mickie James and Mia Yim versus Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo. I'm all for it because, let's face it, this is going to be cool. Then you get a backstage segment with The Influence. Madison Rayne and Tenille Dashwood, they're going back and forth as far as why they lost. Madison Rayne blames Tenille because she ran into her face and her nose. Then Giselle Shaw comes in, and she's like, maybe I could fill in for you. And The Influence basically give Giselle Shaw an ultimatum. If you can take out Rosemary, then we'll consider you filling in for us. And Giselle Shaw's like, cool, consider it done. So we got this whole Giselle Shaw Influence Rosemary thing going on. So question is Giselle Shaw going to take out Rosemary, or is it a fluke to move up or move past The Influence as she gets closer to the Knockouts Championship? Very interesting stuff. Then you had a match between Gujar and Shark Boy versus Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice. This was all right. Kind of wish they kept Gujar away from Shark Boy because Gujar had some solid matches, and you guys who've watched my reviews of Impact Wrestling, I've said I like his look, I like his work, and I don't know, this match just really didn't. It's just weird. Like if there's one takeaway of this whole show, like that, like it was just weird seeing Gujar with Shark Boy. For me, it just felt weird. I just didn't click. It was like, I kind of like him by himself. Like honestly, I don't know why they're waiting. Like Gujar should be with Raj Singh and Shira. They just fit. Like put them together. They're solid. They're a tag team. I heard this recently on a podcast that you rarely get the heel face dynamic in a tag team where one guy's a heel but his best friend's a face, and you have that dynamic. That'd be pretty cool. We haven't seen that in a while because, of course, majority of what we see is from the largest promotion, the WWE, their storytelling, and it's been prevalent for 20 years. But there was something that WCW and I believe ECW did back in the day where they had one guy who was a face and one guy who was a heel. They were a tag team, and the reason why they were a tag team was because they were friends, and just that whole dynamic, and one's in denial. No, he's not a friend. No, he's just very aggressive, and just that whole, like, that'd be pretty cool for them. But this is an okay match, but the highlight of this match was after Gujar wound up getting the pin, you had Joe Doran and Cody Deaner. They just beat the hell out of everybody, and Deaner's like, hey, we won't go nowhere until Josh Alexander comes out. They go to commercial, they come back, Josh Alexander comes out, he attacks both of them, then they start getting the upper hand. Security comes out and separates them. Man, security in pro wrestling, man, they're getting the shit beat out of them in every promotion. WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling. Trying to think of another. I think in AAA they got beat up this past weekend at Triple Mania. So it's, security just got their ass beat. From there, it leads to a match with Josh Alexander and Cody Deaner. This is a pretty solid match. For me personally, this match went on a little bit too long because, let's face it, we haven't seen Cody Deaner wrestle in a while. Or at least I haven't seen him wrestle in a while. And Josh Alexander has been on a tear. Like, this dude is the consummate world heavyweight champion. They have the perfect guy as their world champion right now. The guy can go. And I just felt this match went a little bit too long because he had Moose, he had Eric Young, and Cody Deaner has just been kind of like the third wheel and Violent by Design, and Joe Doran has been a solid piece. So it's just like, all right, I guess, but it kind of went too long. It should have been a squash match. Just to add to the Josh Alexander, Joe Doran match at all against all odds. Because it just feels like maybe it's the way they want it to go, where they want Josh Alexander to have some vulnerability. But for me, it's like, I just see it the opposite. But hey, it's a decent feud right now. Hopefully by August or September they move on to something else with them, because I would like Josh Alexander to feud with Nick Aldis if Nick Aldis ever went to Impact Wrestling. That's just me. After seeing Nick Aldis at Slammiversary, like I said in the Slammiversary review, like, something about him, he just fits. He just fits in Impact Wrestling right now. So from there, we get a backstage segment with Frankie Kazarian. He talks about his history in Impact Wrestling. Him and Chris Sabin, they were both named the Future, and they had back and forth battles. And he says, now I am the Future, and the Future looks good. It is what it is. I like it. I have no issue with it or anything like that, because he is an Impact Wrestling original. It's their 20-year anniversary this year. They celebrate on Slammiversary. So for me, I don't mind hopefully it leads to something down the road, or I don't know. I don't mind it, but the way they're booking it, like it's not too much and it's not too little. It's just like the right amount that we're getting from the Frankie Kazarian involvement in Impact Wrestling. But I don't have no problem with it. He's a solid, good wrestler, man. He puts on some solid matches. Like it's good. Like, you know, something whatever, man. But I don't have no issue with it. It's cool. So this is interesting that he would mention this. I'm the future, and the future look good. Keep that in mind. So we get a backstage segment with America's Most Wanted, the Briscoes and the Good Brothers. The Good Brothers tell the Briscoes and James Storm, you know, hey, we got your back. And then you have this kind of like face off, not a confrontation, just like this conversation. There you go, better term. Between James Storm and Chris Harris, and James Storm's like, hey, where are you going? He's like, I'm going out with you. He's like, no, man, you made a promise. You made a promise to your family. You know, you'll stay here, and I made a promise. We're brothers and everything. So Chris Harris stays back, and, you know, James Storm and the Briscoes go to the ring. Then we get another backstage segment with Sami Callihan. He's trying to find Scott D'Amore. He can't find him, but he runs into Gail Kim. They start talking, and she's like, what more do you want? You had a Monsters Ball match. Like, what do you want to do? And Sami Callihan's like, you know what can top the Monsters Ball? And I talked to a good friend of mine. It's the Raven Clockwork of Orange match. That match is a crazy match. I remember seeing it when Raven was wrestling Abyss back in the day in Impact Wrestling. It's a very wild match. I'm digging how they're using Sami Callihan since his return. I like this. It just gives him that edge and just that unpredictable, like, this dude wants the craziest matches. So you're dealing with a crazy dude that you're going to have to beat him in some wild circumstances. I like that because before he unfortunately got injured and everything, it's kind of like they had him doing the same thing over and over again, and it was like he was stuck. And now it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. And he's working against Moose, which, you know, Moose in these past few matches with Sami Callihan, or this past match with Sami Callihan and the whole build up to it, like, pretty impressive, man. Pretty it's like, ooh, this is interesting, intriguing, and a lot of enthusiasm. So it's like, all right, this should be fun. So you're gonna get it was announced that against all odds you're gonna get Moose and Sami Callihan in a Ravens Clockwork Orange match, and then you're gonna get Jordan Grace versus Tasha Steelz at Against All Odds. Those are the only two matches that they announced so far. Then the main event, you get Eddie Edwards, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett versus the Briscoes and James Storm. This was, how do I put it? It wasn't a bad match or anything like that. It was kind of like your similar flow that Impact Wrestling has with their six-man tags, where the heels are just very heelish to their type of personality. And you saw it in this match, man. Eddie Edwards, Taven, Mike Bennett, you know, when they could get the upper hand, they were getting the upper hand. And then with the Briscoes and James Storm, when they got the upper hand, what I liked about this match, and this is something I have noticed with Impact Wrestling, not saying their crowd was not into their main events before on their Impact Wrestling shows, but this match, the crowd really got into it. It was like, oh man, they really like got into it. And as you watched it, and as I watched it, I got more into the match because I'm like, man, this crowd's getting into it. The Briscoes were into it. The James Storm, they're getting the crowd clapping. It was like, oh man, this was okay, man. This is fun. Like, it was a fun match. You know, the Briscoes, they did a double dive at one point in the match. Then you had, I don't know more, when they got the upper hand. Then you had, it was the Briscoes. They got the Proton Pack finishing move. You know, they win. Then the rest of I don't know more comes out. They start beating down the Briscoes, James Storm. Then you have the Good Brothers. They just start beating them down, and they're just beating the crap out of them. Then you have the chair shots that they did to the Briscoes, and they put Mark Briscoe's leg in a chair. And then it's just multiple shots. Vincent had a shot, one chair shot. You had Eddie Edwards. You had, I believe, Mike Bennett. They had the chair shots, and they scream at the Briscoes, "You should have stayed with us." So that's the interesting thing, because they were in Ring of Honor, all those guys together, and they said, you should have stayed with us. So the ending of Impact, you have this. You have the Good Brothers, who are part of the Bullet Club. They beat the Briscoes for the tag titles, but now they're aligned with them to feud with Honor No More, who don't like the Briscoes because the Briscoes were with Ring of Honor and they didn't choose Honor No More over Impact Wrestling. And then you have James Storm and Chris Harris aligned with the Good Brothers and the Briscoes. So there's this whole dynamic here that's pretty interesting. What I like about this episode, like, that was the focal point. Like, this dynamic between the Good Brothers, America's Most Wanted, Honor No More, and the Briscoes. This whole dynamic it could go in a million different directions, and the Honor No More is heelish, but you don't know what's going to happen between the Good Brothers and the Briscoes. So you don't know what's going to take place. Are the Briscoes going to turn heel at some point? Maybe. Don't know. We just got to watch. So I like it. This episode was fun for me. You could tell that they toned down the physicality that we've seen in the past several weeks. Even, what we saw on Sunday, they just toned down the outside physicality. And by that, I mean the weapons and chairs and things like that. You had it in certain spots, but you didn't have it, just what we've seen in the past several weeks. But man, this was a fun episode. I'm really, like I said, I'm intrigued with this America's Most Wanted, the Briscoes, the Good Brothers, Honor No More dynamic. Like, where is this going to go? Who's going to turn on who? Who's going to get the straps? What's the end game with Honor No More? Like, is this leading to a reveal that they're with the new Ring of Honor that's owned by Tony Khan or something like that? I don't know. I'm interested in it. This is pretty cool. So check out this episode of Impact Wrestling. Like I always say, man, Impact Wrestling is a very complimentary alternative to WWE and AEW, and this was fun. This was fun. It was harmless. It was just pro wrestling. Just sit back, enjoy. Oh man, okay, man. This is all right. This is cool. So that is my review for the June 23rd episode of Impact Wrestling. Like, share, comment, subscribe, follow House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And like I always say, look, man, there's just a lot of crazy stuff going on in this world. Look, pro wrestling's entertainment. Let us enjoy it for the 1, 2, 3 hours. Just, escape from all the crazy stuff that's happening, and, just enjoy it. And especially, with all the injuries happening in professional wrestling, let's just enjoy pro wrestling, because things can change from 0 to 100 real quick. No pun intended, the quote from Drake, but let's just enjoy it, man, because it's just getting crazy. And look, man, wrestling can be that escape for a few hours, man. So, and stop fighting over wrestling. Like, come on, man, just enjoy it. But with that, I'm out.